The Tower of Babel, what was that all about? You've probably heard the story before, but today I'm gonna tell you the bizarre history you were never told. You are not gonna want to miss this. Have you ever looked up at a skyscraper and marveled at its towering height? As a kid, I would often look up at the Willis Tower in Chicago and wonder, could someone please tell me why they stopped building the tower at 108 stories? Why didn't they keep going higher? It wasn't until I grew up and took a course in comparative mythology that I learned the reason mankind stops building at 90 stories or so. The reason is fear. Fear of something known as the curse of the Tower of Babel. But what is the curse of the Tower of Babel? To understand this strange curse, we first have to understand the biblical account in the book of Genesis. You see, after the Great Flood, the Earth's population started to increase rapidly, and over time, they all migrated to the plains of Shinar and began building their way up to the heavens. They constructed a tower so tall that it would allow them to reach God and become like Him. However, God came down and judged their arrogance by confusing their language and scattering them across the face of the earth. This event became known as the Tower of Babel. But hold on a second. According to the Bible, the people who built the Tower of Babel were giants. In fact, the same generation that built the Tower of Babel also built the city of Jericho, whose walls were so tall that they had to be destroyed. Yet somehow this event is always left out of church. But here's where things get even weirder. After I learned about the Tower of Babel in my mythology class, I couldn't stop thinking about the many tall buildings in our world today. Could it be possible that every culture around the world knows about the Tower of Babel and their ancient agreement to never build a tower taller than 90 stories? In order to find the answer to this question, I dove into old books on comparative mythology only to discover that the story of the Tower of Babel is actually a retelling of an ancient Sumerian myth. See, the Sumerians were some of the earliest inhabitants of the plains of Shinar where the Tower of Babel was built. And their myth explained the origin of the sky, the earth and humanity. In this myth, the sun Gadutu desired the love of a mortal woman named Ninjakuga. But when she rejected his advances, he became enraged and cursed her to have children who would kill their father and sleep with their mother. One day, Ningal took her sons to a nearby cedar forest and commanded them to build a tower in the sky so that she might ascend to the heavens. The sons worked hard and quickly built a ziggurat made out of cedar wood. And when it was finished, the princess climbed to the topmost branch of the cedar tree, lit a fire and jumped into the arms of the moon god. Realizing that he had been outwitted, the sun god raced to the summit of the mountain, grabbed the princess and hurled her into the sea. Her body then turned into a tasty fish, which the gods caught and divided among themselves. And thus, human beings were created from the leftover scraps. So what does this have to do with the Tower of Babel? Well, in both myths, the heroes build a tower to reach the heavens. However, in the biblical account, the people are punished for their pride, whereas in the Sumerian account, they successfully reach the heavens and receive a blessing. Over time, these two stories merged together and the biblical account won out. That's why Christians believe that Nimrod and his fellow builders were cursed to speak different languages, while Muslims believe that Allah scattered them because He did not like the darkness the smoke was creating. But here's where things get really interesting. Did ancient civilizations all around the world really know about the Tower of Babel? You see, there are many stories in the Bible that parallel pagan myths from other cultures. For example, the story of Noah's Ark is similar to the story of Deucalion and his wife Pyrrha in Greek mythology. Both couples are warned of an impending flood, build a boat and survive with 7 pairs of animals. Similarly, the story of Adam and Eve is almost identical to the Babylonian myth of Etzel and Lilith. However, unlike these myths, the story of the Tower of Babel has no parallels in other cultures. Furthermore, the ancient Sumerians did not leave behind any written records of their civilization. All we have are clay tablets, which were discovered by archaeologists in the early 20th century. And yet the Sumerian version of the Tower of Babel myth is strikingly similar to the biblical account. So could it be possible that the Sumerians wrote down the myth thousands of years ago, but it was lost until modern archaeologists discovered it? Or could it be possible that the author of Genesis was actually a Sumerian priest who adapted the myth for his own religious purposes? These are questions that have kept me up at night. And I'll be honest, I don't have the answer. However, one thing is certain, the ancient builders of the Tower of Babel were most likely giants. Now, if you don't believe me, I challenge you to read the first chapter of Genesis and count how many times the phrase "in those days" appears. What you will discover is that the phrase appears 36 times, which means that everything that happened during the time of the flood also happened during the time of the Tower of Babel. And since giants are mentioned 36 times in the Bible, it stands to reason that the builders of the Tower of Babel were giants. But I'm curious, what do you think? Were the builders of the Tower of Babel giants? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hey, everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos. Thanks for watching.